Hello Android users, today I'd like to talk to you about running Fallout 2 on Android with our HP touchpad and CyanogenMod 9. Now to do this we're going to need an x86 emulator to run Windows 95 in our Android environment. You may have seen people do this before, but we're going to do it a little differently. We aren't going to play Minesweeper and we aren't going to write our names in paint. We're going to open Microsoft Office, we're going to browse a CD, and we're going to play Fallout 2. So we've got lots to show you. I'll try to save some of the technical stuff towards the end. Fallout 2 has some ridiculous load times. We'll talk about stuff during that. Here you can see my Windows 95, my custom setup here booting up. I'll show you my Directx Diagnostics. Show you the system that's being emulated. It's an Intel Pentium 2 MMX processor with 512 megabytes of RAM. DirectX 6.1. Standard VGA graphics emulated. And it's running in 16-bit. Now you'll notice it's all in Russian. But all my programs are in English, so it kind of balances itself out. You can see here I can set custom wallpapers. And I'm running in 24-bit true color. Now I'm running a .vhd version of Windows 95, and this is a virtual hard disk, which we'll talk about in a bit, but you can see here I've set up a file system. Here's my operating system. I've created a second drive here, my data drive, and also my Fallout directory. We can explore. It's actually mounted and off of my actual Fallout ISO. And we can run it. And we can install it fully from the CD. I installed Microsoft Office like this. Here you can see the setup menu. Now, interesting thing about Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 is with the actual CDs, the installation that's now missing in some of the downloaded versions, you could install from just a 1 megabyte file and play off of the CD. So this is one method of installation, which is to do the small installation and then play off the mounted CD image with our .vhd emulated Windows file inside Android CyanogenMod 9 on the HP touchpad. Here I can select my drives, or you can do the humongous installation. Back in the day, we didn't worry about copyright. You could just go ahead and install the full game and not use the CD. I spent hours back in the day tweaking this on my friends' Pentium 2, Pentium 3's computers, their basement apartments, hanging out, playing Fallout. As you can see, the file system is quite easy to navigate, just like Windows. I got some drivers. I installed Service Pack 2. Tried to fix up the flash drivers, but the videos in Fallout 2 just don't play well. I have Command and Conquer. Okay, let's show you some games. Oh, actually, first let's show you Word 95. Now I have this set up with my Logitech keyboard already paired, so I can just start type. This is working. Yay. I just do a little type, exit, just like current versions of Office. It asks you to save. You can save. Sure, let's save. I've already made a couple files. It's really great. Fully functional. Next, let's move on to Fallout 2, although Command and Conquer runs. Let's show you that Fallout 2 runs, but mention there's no sound. It's rather unstable. I've been working on that. I installed the whole thing to a secondary drive to do the humongous installation, and that helps to run it a little better. I configured the file quite a bit, tweaked it quite a bunch. Fallout 2 requires quite a bit of free hard drive space to move around the files, and it's notorious for taking a long time to run on old Pentium 2, Pentium 3 computers. I've had quite a bit of experience with this, so I've tried to set it up in a reasonable sort of way. But the load times are still going to be quite ridiculous. Please stand by is quite adequate in this case. Now you're going to need a Windows.vhd image of a hard drive. You can use a Windows 95 computer and make a hard drive image of it, you can search this in Windows. I won't be providing it to you, but you'll need to find it. And you'll need to install drivers. You can manipulate the file system. What's really interesting about these files is that they can be mounted into a Windows 7 file system and accessed, and things can be moved around. Now to get to this menu here, you go to Start Menu, Computer, right-click, and go to Manage. And that brings up the menu you see before us. Once this loads up, we go to Disk Management, and we're ready, as you can see here in the full screen, to attach our VHD images of Windows. Now once we've attached this image, we can fully interact with it. Now I'm just going to jump back to Fallout here, because it's started to load. Now you can see the videos don't play properly. They're very sluggish, and there's no sound, but let's have a look. Welcome to Fallout 2 on the Android. Now it's pretty much a slideshow, moving through these sorts of videos. And there's no sound, so we'll just skip past. Now the load times are just horrendous. They take forever. But once it's actually loaded into a level, it's quite playable. Now this was quite common for these old Pentium 2, Pentium 3 computers. So let's start loading it up. So far, no crash. It's a save in the den. Now this takes a little time to load. So let's switch back up here and talk about VHD files a little more. Now that I've mounted my files, my VHD image, I can open it up, and I have made two partitions. One for the Windows file system, and one for storing Fallout, so there'll be lots of free space for it. Now, the one method of installing would be to go from installing from the ISO mounted in the virtualated Windows 95 environment. Now, another method, because most of the downloads nowadays don't include a CD or a CD image, it's just a one setup exe, you can install it right to your computer and then copy and paste it into the data file that you can create. Now let's talk about doing that. Now once you have the Windows 95 VHD image, you can use a program that you can download from VM Toolkit called VHD Resizer. VHD Resizer will let you increase the size of the drive if it's something more dynamic like NTFS. If it's like a FAT format, you'll have to stick with creating a second partition like I have done. Now here I have just the Windows 95 file, which I'm going to open. You choose a destination and name it. Name it Test. Save it. Choose the size of it. You can choose a gigabyte or switch to megabytes. 1,000 megabytes being a gigabyte would be a good size, and the overall size, including the operating system, will be this size. So once we click Resize, it'll go through the operation and create it for us and put it to our desired destination. Now once I've created this, we're still going to need to go in and activate it. We need to go back, and we can add and remove the drives. I'm going to remove the one I just added. And the one I just created, I'm going to attach the VHD, browse to it. We called it Test. Now we'll open it up. Now when it comes up here in the disk management, it'll be blacked out because it hasn't been activated. The first file system, the operating system, is accessible, but the second one won't be until we right-click on it, go to New Simple Volume, Next, Next, make sure it doesn't conflict with the letter of the drive, Next, File Partition System, which are going to be the same as our operating system, in this case it's FAT, and name the volume. I usually name it Data, because we're going to store stuff there, and go to Next, and now that it's activated, it should pop up. There we go, Data. And we can simply drag and drop our installed from PC Fallout 2 file into this folder. Now once we have it loaded up here, we can simply disconnect it There's no DRM protection on it, so we simply load it up in our emulator and we can run it. And now back down below, Fallout 2 has loaded. Now where am I? Here we are in the den. Now it tends to crash in the more complicated areas. I've played up until this point on the touchpad entirely and created a new game after installing it here. Once it loads into an area, it's quite playable, but the load times are just horrendous. Now there's no sound, but what you can do is start the music playback on your touchpad in the background and control it. Because you can simply swipe and still control Android in the background. So it gives you little options if you want to play long term. Okay, now we got some bad dudes here. Get my buddy to follow me in. Look for a good position, and we're going to ambush them. We may not survive that long. But it'll give you a good idea of complex gameplay and how it's going to run. Now, it's unstable, as I've mentioned, and could run from anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. The load times are quite long, but it's nice to just see this running. I've tried to add sound by editing the config file for the emulator, but I've had no success. There you can see we've entered combat. I've taken up a strategic position in this room, so they'll have to follow me in because I'm heavily outnumbered. Let's just see what happens. Now I have the CPU overclocked just like Fallout 1 to 1.5 gigahertz. I can't provide you with Fallout 1 or 2 the game, so you have to find these yourself. I can provide you with the emulator and the knowledge how to do it yourself, but there's going to be a little bit of assembly required here. Batteries are not included. And you'll need to use a custom config file which made this more playable. Now I found putting it onto the hard drive, like making a second image with my .vhd file for Windows, was the most stable way to do it than do the humongous installation onto there. My turn has come up again. Looks like my follower is in the way. As usual. Oh, looks like the guy's on the floor and he's still alive. Well, not for long. But it's really quite playable. I have experienced quite a bit, you could say, running this on old computers like Pentium 2, Pentium 3s back in the day in my buddy's basement, trying to get this to run. And Fallout 2 had some major issues with load times, and it's very much like that with this emulator because it's very much a Pentium 2 system. Now I've been trying to increase the memory amount and the hard drive space to have it load a little better and faster, but it's still quite problematic. If I had perhaps a better machine, it would load faster. If you have a better Android tablet, for instance, or phone, or the newer generations that will be coming out in the future, should run this kind of application a lot better. As you can see, the map is just full of enemies. And it runs reasonably well, about as well as Fallout 1 ran, but without sound and not as stably. Big downside is stability. But I have tweaked it a bit. At first, all you could do was kind of walk around, and every minute or two it would crash. It wasn't really playable. After tweaking it, trying the full installation, that sort of thing, it runs a little better. I've tweaked the Windows settings as well. But really quite a thing to see Fallout 2 running with Android inside of a Windows environment. An ARM processor running like a Pentium processor. Something it was not designed to do. but doing here successfully. Now there's many versions of these emulators out there. The one I found runs the VHD files, but they don't all. And so I believe it's a QEMU or something file, and then there's a different kind of launcher, an APK. So basically there's one file with the information, and there's a config file in there too. And the config file you'll need to edit so you can add ISO images. I can install other games on here. I've had trouble getting other things to run, but I've tested out installations of quite a few things just to see how it would work out. And it's been rather successful. My turn has come up again. As you can see, it's running quite well, and it's very busy right now. But a little disappointing not having the sound nonetheless. Now, I've tried to, I'll take you back off while I talk about the config file a little. Now, this is what the config file will look like. Here is the name of your VHD. I have a Windows 95.VHD. Here is the memory amount. I set it to 256, then 512, which seems to work because I have a 1 gig in total. And then here at the end, the CD-ROM, fallout2.iso. So you'll need to edit this if you want it named something different. You'll just need to change there and change here. And then you'll need to save the config file to do that. And Fallout 2 still running well down here. Still vastly outnumbered. Anyways, I should try to cut it a little short. Now this is just like running Windows, so you'll need to exit. And you'll want to shut down normally because you'll have to do scan disk every time after. Now, anytime scan disk comes up when you're doing this, I would skip scan disk because we're doing lots of things that Windows never intended, and it will just kind of confuse it. So the very option on the end is skip, and you just skip it. And there you go. I'll just show you quickly that Command & Conquer also runs. Other games will run and can be installed from here. I haven't yet tried Grand Theft Auto, but I'm planning on doing that at some point. Now this is just a demo for Command & Conquer. And you can also run this in, say, a DosBox or DosBox Turbo, and it runs better because it runs with sound. You won't get any sound in this environment. Oh, sorry, I missed the click there. There you go. Command & Conquer. Now, I got these emulator files from a YouTube user named Moro, who was kind enough to provide them to me. And then I kind of reversed engineered it to figure out what had been done. I tried to ask him about it, but he wasn't the creator, so he didn't quite know. But a big thanks to him for providing this, because I was so happy to get Fallout 2 running on here. It's quite a dream come true. Please give me a big thumbs up. I'll be happy to answer your questions and help you get it running too if you like. And we'll just exit out of here. And you want to shut down like it's normal Windows. There we go, exit Command & Conquer. And there you have it. Windows and Fallout 2 running on the HP touchpad with Cyanogen Mod 9. And there. Anyways, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to see more videos like this in the future, and give me a big old thumbs up for all my hard efforts. You can download the config file and the emulator below. There'll be further instructions down below as well. Thanks for watching.